Professor Nagel expounds on the point that we just heard from Professor Shears to consider whether the scientific method is, in fact, applicable to the whole of what we call the sciences.
I'm not sure that there is something that deserves to be called the scientific method because I think there are multiple methods used within science. There are some sciences that don't require experimentation, astronomy, for example, and some sciences where experimentation plays a vital part. I do think it's characteristic of science that empirical observation ends up playing a crucial role. Except that I also want to classify, for example, mathematics, broadly speaking, as a science. It's a disciplined investigation. It's not an empirical science. At the same time, mathematics is crucial in structuring the modeling that's performed across a great variety of different sciences. So I think our understanding of science and scientific methods is actually quite complex, and it continues to evolve as we develop new techniques over time. I think we're always looking for ways of thinking that are robust and ways of thinking that can be counted on to deliver the truth, to reduce uncertainty, to reduce ambiguity. But I wouldn't want to jump in and say we can quickly define what the scientific method is now and always will be, because I think we're continuing to come up with new ways to tackle the problem of the nature of reality, recently including innovations even in artificial intelligence. So we're perhaps starting to come up with ways of using tools that have cognitive capacities of their own, in some ways outstripping ours.
Professor Nagel mentions an intriguing possibility here. As a species, we have built instruments to extend our empirical reach, for example, by extending our sense of sight through microscopy and telescopes. However, tools that may potentially extend our cognitive reach could prove to be revolutionary by comparison. We will touch upon this while exploring questions related to AI and human consciousness in episode 3. But for now, let's go back to the scientific method and one of its foundational philosophical underpinnings, naturalism. Naturalism is the idea that only physical objects, by which I mean matter that takes up space and volume and is subject to time, exist, and that only forces that operate upon these physical objects are natural laws, for example, gravity. Hence, naturalism is closely aligned with the ideas of physicalism, materialism, and it is, by its nature, reductionistic. This idea is a philosophical one that makes claims about the nature of reality, and scholars separate philosophical naturalism, also termed as metaphysical or ontological naturalism, from methodological naturalism. Methodological naturalism, arguably, separates tools of inquiry into physical objects and into those natural laws from the truth claim that all that exists is physical, and all that exists that is physical is also subject to those natural laws. To those of you that are listening who come from a religious background, you would likely not agree that all that exists is physical in nature, and not everything is subject to the laws of physics. This would preclude the existence of angels, the occurrence of miracles, and other things like this. However, you may concede that the adoption of methodological naturalism is indeed a viable means to ascertain knowledge about reality. And that is the point. As critical assessors of knowledge, we must be vigilant in detecting the philosophical views that can be smuggled in with methodologies of scientific inquiry. Osama Mirza cautions us against an ideological mechanistic reductionism that can creep into biomedical settings, and in some cases can be distorted to support unethical uses of biomedicine.